Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to AMC Mail Bag, the mailbag edition of AMC Movie Talk, if you will. My name is John Campia. I am the editor-in-chief of AMC Movie News, and this is our very informal, laid-back, very relaxed kind of show that we do here on the weekend. So you guys and us, all of us movie fans, can just sit around here and talk about movies and what's going on in the movie world and things like that. I'm even, share a little bit of behind-the-scenes stuff of what happens at AMC Movie News. And we are so glad that you decided to make this show a part of your day. You're diehard movie fans when it's like Saturday morning and you're all kind of just talking movies together online. This is great. I'm having a good time already. So anyway, we got a bunch of things we're going to do. Let me run down what's going to happen today. As many of you know, we did the AMC 24-hour movie marathon last month, and you guys raised over nearly $27,000 for the hurricane relief funds in the Philippines after that disastrous typhoon, the most powerful in recorded history, hit that country and just wiped out parts of it. And you guys raised nearly $27,000. And on top of that, we were also able to then fund a family feeding program in New York City where you guys were, I believe for a day, were able to feed 300 New York families, all from that one 24-hour marathon. And as a part of that, I told people that if you donate to the marathon, we'll ask your question on air. But here's the problem. I thought we were going to raise about $3,000. I didn't think we would get as many donators as we did, and so I wasn't expecting to get as many questions as we did. So while we spent like the entire marathon practically answering the questions of people who donated money to the cause, we still had like over 100 questions that never got asked. So the first part of today's show is going to be addressing some of those questions that got asked at the 24-hour marathon, and then we're going to spend the second half of the show just taking questions from you guys in the live chat board. But since I'm all by myself today, what I'd like to ask is, instead of putting your question in the chat board, leave the chat board today just for talking amongst yourselves and actually email your question to AMC Movie Talk. You can see that right down here, amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Email the question in, because it's going to be a lot easier for me since I'm on my own to actually keep track of the questions and things like that if they're in an email. Because, man, this chat board, once you guys start talking, it just starts scrolling like this, and I just can't keep up. Sometimes we'll have a dedicated person sitting here with me to just keep track of that, but nobody was available today, so it's just me. So that would help me out a lot. Now, before we get to the questions today, I want to address, we launched our new show this past week, AMC Versus, and I got to tell you, I freaking loved it. I had such a good time with AMC Versus. I thought Aaron and Schnepp both did such a great job doing it, had much fun doing it. But it was our first time, right? It was our very first show. So we knew, making AMC Versus, that the AMC Versus that will be on in 3 months will probably look a little bit different than the AMC Versus we did this past week. Because, it's our first show, and we grow and we evolve and we tweak things up. And we've already made some changes for this upcoming AMC Versus that'll be airing on our YouTube channel on Tuesday. And it'll always air on Tuesday, by the way. AMC Versus will always be on Tuesdays. And so I want to tell you guys a couple of changes that we've made to AMC Versus. Now, Aaron won the first battle. The first debate, of course, was who gave the better superhero performance, Christian Bale as Batman or Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. And then the voting was who gave the best arguments. And I thought it was very clear. The person who made the best argument was Aaron. I think most people, Schnepp even kind of agreed with me that Aaron made the better arguments. But man, the voting was close. It was razor thin. I think only about 200 votes out of like 6,500 votes got cast. And I think the difference between the two was only like 200. And I think Schnepp had like 200 more votes. But since the judge, in this case it was me, the judge's vote counts for 10%, and that put Aaron over the top. So Aaron won. Now, here are some changes we're making for the upcoming AMC Versus. Change number one, The opening arguments are 3 minutes, and then we said the rebuttals was 2 minutes. We're reducing the rebuttal stage to 1.5 minutes instead of 2 minutes. And the closing arguments part was 1 minute long, and we're reducing that to 45 seconds. And instead of one objection, each debater is going to be allowed 2 objections now, moving forward. And then the judge's vote, this coming Tuesday, Dennis Zen is going to be the judge. The judge's vote is now going to be worth 5% instead of 10%. So now some people in the chat board were asking me, why does the judge get 10% of the vote? And now it's 5%, but at the time it was 10%. And initially, when we were first designing AMC or AMC Versus, it was just going to be the judge. There wasn't going to be any fan voting. It's just the judge was going to make their judgment, and then everybody else can comment on it. So then we thought, well, what if we made it 50-50? Judge gets 50%, voters get 50%, and we thought that didn't make sense. Well, what if we did like judge gets 40% of the vote, fans get 60% of the vote? And so what we did was we reduced it all the way down to 1/10. We made the judge's vote worth 1/10 of the overall vote, which was 10%. But in this particular case, with over 6,500 votes, that meant the judge's vote was worth 650 votes. And I think that's a little bit too much. So we're going to reduce that to 5%. But why I think the judge's vote needs to count, whether I'm judging or Dennis is judging or Schnepp will be a judge, the reason I think the judge's vote needs to count is because I think we need to offset a little bit some of the people who, like, I had this discussion in the comment section with one of the fans, and one of the fans said to me, this is bullcrap. Why is John's vote worth 10%? Schnepp should have won that debate, blah, 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 blah. And I said to him, dude, but, Schnepp acknowledges, Schnepp said himself that he made a mistake. He spent most of his time debating that Iron Man was a better movie than the Dark Knight movies, and that wasn't the topic. The topic was who gives the best superhero performance. And Erin stayed on topic, and she made great arguments. And I said, even Schnepp thinks that she won the debate. And he said back to me, yeah, you're probably right. I'm just a big Schnepp fanboy, and I was going to vote for Schnepp no matter what. And that's why I think that a judge's vote should count, because it needs to offset a little bit that one segment of people who are just going to vote. I think there's going to be a lot of people that just voted Christian Bale because that's their favorite, instead of actually listening to the arguments and then voting for whoever gave the best argument. I think there were people who were just going to vote for John Schnepp because Schnepp is so popular and they're big John Schnepp fans. I'm a big John Schnepp fan. And now that John Schnepp figured out the mistake he made in the first debate, I would not want to debate him again, because I think he's going to really bring it next time. But to me, it was just clear that Erin made the best arguments. And I think it's good for the judge in this, to have like at least a vote, a certain percentage of the vote, to offset, say, some people who would just vote for whoever they thought was most popular. And one of the things I said in the comment section with the videos was, because if you just make it a fan vote and there's no other offsetting influence, then what I'm afraid of is it becomes like an MTV Movie Awards where Twilight wins Best Picture. What? Because, that is just why what was popular and the fans just voted. And I really want to make sure this stays about the debate itself. Because my favorite thing about being a film fan is that we as film fans can debate and exchange, and that's a lot of fun. So I really wanted to make sure that AMC Versus becomes about the dialogue, the exchange, the debate. And I think if we don't make sure that there's a judge's element in that, then it can run the risk of just becoming a popularity contest. And I don't want that to be that. And I think the vast majority of our fans don't want it to be that either. So, some people are pointing out the chat board, hey man, I voted for Bale because of the argument. I think the vast majority of the people who voted for Schnepp's argument for Robert Downey Jr. voted because they thought Schnepp made the best argument. But a lot of people are already emailing me and telling me, and even saying in the chat board now, that, yeah, they voted for Schnepp because they were going to vote for Robert Downey Jr. no matter what before they even saw the debate. So I think we need to find that balance, and I think after the first episode, I think we saw that 10% of the vote for the judge is too much. I think that was too heavy, and that's not balanced. So we're going to try it this coming week where the judge's vote is worth 5%. So in this case, that would have been about 350 votes worth. And I think that's a nice balance. So we're going to move on from there. So once again, The rebuttal stage is reduced from 2 minutes to 1:30. The closing argument stage is going to be reduced from 1 minute to 45 seconds. Each debater is going to get 2 objections instead of 1, and the judge's vote will be worth 5% instead of 10%. And I'm looking forward. And the next topic is going to be who played the better Spider-Man? Andrew Garfield in The Amazing Spider-Man or Tobey Maguire in the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans? And I believe Erin Darling has taken the position of Tobey Maguire, and she will be debating for the Tobey Maguire performance of Spider-Man, and I will be debating against Erin, and my position is the Andrew Garfield position. And Dennis Zen will be our right honorable judge for the day. So I hope you guys join us. Once again, that's on Tuesday. It airs at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's Los Angeles time. That's 7 p.m. East Coast time. So I hope you guys can join us once again. Lots of fun. Okay. I'm going to say this again, too. Just a reminder, because I keep getting people emailing me saying, John, it's rude that you're sucking on candies during the show. I am sick. I have a cough. I've been told I'm going to have the cough probably for a few more weeks. And so to get through it, I have to have lozenges, in this case, Halls. And I also have some hot tea. So forgive me for, having the candies and the lozenges and everything like that. But it is what I need to do the job today. All right, folks. So with all that being said, let's get to our first round of mailbag questions from the 24-hour marathon. And I'm going to go through these fairly quickly so we can get to the live viewer chat questions. And I'm going to try to make today's show like an hour if I can. No time restraints today. I'm by myself. It's just going to be a matter of how long can I talk before my coughing gets really bad, because when I actually talk is when my coughing gets bad. So I'll see how we can do. All right. First question today comes to us from Robert Smith, who writes, hello, AMC crew. Just donated and feels good to know my money is helping someone other than myself. Thanks so much for your donation, Robert. Anyways, I have a question. Do you think that it is possible for Venom to team up with Spider-Man in an Amazing Spider-Man 3 against the Sinister Six? Possibly make it so Venom is pissed off at Oscorp for things they've done to him and he wants revenge. I would love to see a team up with the two, being Spider-Man and Venom. Venom is my all-time favorite character. Love you all, and awesome job with the charity work. Thank you, AMC crew. Well, I can't remember if we knew yet. Somebody in the chat board remind me, when we did the 24-hour marathon, I can't remember if the news had already come out that Sinister Six and Venom were getting their own standalone movies. Because I don't think they had announced it yet. But now we know that Venom is getting a standalone movie, Sinister Six is getting a standalone movie. Venom and Spider-Man teaming up. The thing about Venom is I don't know that you can, and I've mentioned this before on the show, I don't know that you can do a straight-up villain movie where you're cheering for Venom to wipe out that school bus full of children. I just don't know how well you can pull something like that off. So I think there has to be some element of a dark character who's not necessarily straight up evil, but is a bad guy, but doing the right thing for his own reasons. And I think the situation you bring up, Robert, is an interesting one. Okay, Venom's a bad guy, but he is being motivated to do the right thing, fighting the Sinister Six, maybe for the wrong reasons because he wants revenge. That could work. I think that could work. I want to know what you guys think in the chat board about that. Like me personally, like I said, I don't think you go straight up villain Venom, because then that just becomes a movie where you're just following a guy killing a lot of people, period. And I don't know that you can build a movie around that. Whereas a team up with Spider-Man, because he wants revenge against the Sinister Six and Oscorp, I can see that, and I can see it working. And then they defeat the Sinister Six, and then Venom and Spider-Man become enemies again. I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities, but I certainly think it's something that could potentially work. Okay. Next question comes to us from Igor Hrenovac, who writes, great run. You should make it a weekly event. Yeah, a 24-hour marathon every week. Thanks, Igor. You're trying to kill me. I was listening for about 16 hours, and I don't really know what movie subject you didn't touch, so maybe this one was not asked. Angelina Jolie in a Cleopatra movie. There has been talk about it for some time. David Fincher was attached to direct, and then he dropped out, and Ang Lee took over. And that was about a year ago, and no word after that. So is that project still alive? Have you heard anything? Yeah, that Cleopatra movie was sounding damn awesome. Angelina Jolie, one of the probably top 20 best actresses working in the business today. David Fincher, probably one of the top 10 directors working in the business today. And a biblical style epic film like old Hollywood used to make. Sounded awesome. Now, from what I understand, Fincher and the studio, in this case it was Sony, I believe, couldn't come to terms with each other over the way they thought the film needed to happen and over the way they thought the film would have to do to work. And so, from what I understand, I think everything was amicable, but Fincher departed the project. If I'm not mistaken, I believe 4 directors have been attached at one point or another to some degree. David Fincher, Ang Lee, Paul Greengrass, which would have been a really interesting choice, and James Cameron, I think, even flirted with the idea of Cleopatra for a while. The last I heard, and I haven't researched this, but the last I heard, Ang Lee came on board, but he hadn't read the script yet. Now, I'm sure he's read the script since. I just, that's the last real report I knew about it. And then you're right, I haven't heard anything since. And since that time, Angelina Jolie has caught the directing bug herself, so she's been working a lot of her own projects as well. Does that mean the Cleopatra project is dead? I hope not. I hope the Cleopatra project isn't dead, but I haven't heard anything, and I haven't seen any movement. And I think Ang Lee may have moved on. I don't know that for sure. But if any of you guys have heard differently, please let me know in the chat board, but that is the last that I heard. All right, let's move on to the third question. The third question comes to us from Brian Stokes, who writes, "Hello, sons and daughters of AMC. I'm a huge fan of AMC Movie Talk." Thank you so much, Brian. "The show inspires me on a number of levels. The question I would like to ask is, do you think a Black Panther appearance will ever come to the big screen? Thanks, and keep up the great work." Well, I mean, this is an issue we've addressed a lot on AMC Movie Talk. Will we see a Black Panther movie? I'll give you the answer that I always give. Yes, we are going to see it. The big question is when. Now, Marvel recently announced 3 release dates, 2 for 2016, I believe May and June of 2016, and a third one for June of 2017, but they didn't say which movies were going to be opening. Now, a lot of us assumed, I think I was one of them, assumed that one would be a Doctor Strange movie, one would be a Black Panther movie, and one would either be like a Thor 3 or maybe even ramping up how quickly they do Avengers movie, and maybe Avengers 3 would be one of those dates. But since that time, in the past week or two, Marvel has confirmed that Thor 3 is coming, and they're working on it. And they just announced that Captain America 3 is already in development. So I think at this point, it's safe to say or assume, nothing's been confirmed, but I think this is a fairly safe assumption, that 2 out of those 3 release date spots are now taken. 1 by Thor, which leaves 2 left, and 1 by Captain America, which leaves 1 left. And if that's the case, if 2 of those 3 release dates are being reserved for Thor 3, which they've confirmed is coming, and Captain America 3, which they've confirmed is coming, that leaves 1 spot left. And so the natural assumption at this point becomes, well, it's either going to be Doctor Strange because of all the Doctor Strange talk, or Black Panther because, if Kevin Feige says he wants a Black Panther movie. So the question becomes, which one of those 2 movies, Doctor Strange or Black Panther, will take that 3rd release date spot? And it could be another one. I mean, it could be another Marvel property altogether. It might not even be Doctor Strange and Black Panther. Maybe they don't think they're ready for those yet and they want more time to develop it. But I'm going to guess it'll be Doctor Strange will be the 3rd one. So I believe the first 3 phase 4 movies or phase 3 movies. Yes, the first 3 phase 3 movies for Marvel are going to be Thor 3, Captain America 3, and Doctor Strange. It's just guessing. Nobody's confirmed that yet. It's my guess. So if that is the case, I'm going to guess that Black Panther will come in phase 4. Maybe even get introduced in Avengers 3. I'm not really sure. That's just guessing. But I have no doubt they are going to make a Black Panther movie. Of that, I have no doubt. It's just a question of when. All right, let's move on to the 4th question here. The 4th question comes to us from David Harvin, who writes, After the Man of Steel / Batman film, do you think there will be other team-up movies from DC or even Marvel, even if it's just for a third of the film? If so, which characters do you think will be best together? I'll be honest with you. I don't think that team-up movies are really the way that either DC or Marvel wants to go. Yes, we have a Batman Superman, but people have wanted Batman Superman for 50 years. Other than that, let's look at Captain America 2, which is coming out soon. You have Black Widow in it, you have Falcon in it, but it's not a team-up movie per se. It is Captain America 2. And sure, there will be other heroes in it, but it's not really a team-up movie. I have no doubt that future DC films are going to have multiple characters in them. I have no doubt that future Marvel films will have other characters in them, but I don't think by definition they're going to be team-up movies. I don't think we're going to see Thor, Hulk. I don't think we're going to see Iron Man, Hawkeye. I think we're going to see Thor 3, and maybe Hulk will be in it, but it will be Thor 3. I think we'll see at some point another Iron Man movie, probably without Robert Downey Jr. way down the line. And maybe they'll have a Hawkeye in it. But it won't be Iron Man, Hawkeye. It'll be Iron Man 4. Much like Captain America 2 is not Captain America, Black Widow. It's Captain America 2. So that's the way I think they're going to handle it moving forward. But like I said, Batman, Superman, that is a very special exception. Because people have wanted Batman, Superman for frickin' ever. I am one of them. So I think that's the one exception they make. But I don't think we'll see an Aquaman, Hawkman movie. I don't think that's coming. All right. Question number 5 comes to us from Dustin Voorhees, who writes, I wonder if he's any relation to Jason. Anyway, I think that you guys at AMC Movie Talk, what you guys are doing at AMC Movie Talk is such a great thing. Many families will be helped. Remember, this is from the 24-hour marathon, guys. Many families will be helped by the money raised with this marathon. My question, if you had the chance to live the life of any movie character, who would you choose and why? It can be any character from any movie. Tough question. Live the life of any movie character from any movie. Okay, you know me. I am 24 hours all Star Wars all the time, so I'll go Luke Skywalker. I want to be Luke Skywalker post the first Star Wars movie. So not living on Tatooine on a moisture farm, Luke Skywalker. I want to be Luke Skywalker after he's become a Jedi. Because think about it. How sweet of a deal did Luke Skywalker get? All right, think about this. What we learned from those abomination, those horrible, terrible abomination of Star Wars films that were called the prequels. What we learned is that to become a Jedi, like babies were taken at an extremely young age, raised as children in the Jedi Temple, then had to apprentice for 20 years and then become a Jedi Master. So basically you had Ewan McGregor. I don't know, maybe he was like 25 in the Phantom Menace. You had Ewan McGregor, who had spent his whole life trying to become a Jedi. You know, raised as a youngling in the Jedi Temple, then was taken on as an apprentice by Qui-Gon Jinn, and then had been with Qui-Gon Jinn for however many, maybe a decade or more, and still wasn't a Jedi Master. Luke Skywalker went to Dagobah for 2 weeks. And he's a Jedi. Boom. That's a sweet deal, ladies and gentlemen. That is a sweet deal. It's like, wait a minute. So you're a doctor, right? You're a heart surgeon. So you aced all your grades in school, top your class, valedictorian in high school, graduated top your class in college, went into medical school, published numerous medical papers, and did all this great stuff. You spent 25 years practicing medicine, become the person you are now. Now you're a certified heart surgeon. Right? Great. I'm going to go to this 2-week camp in Iowa, and I'm going to be a heart surgeon too. That's the deal that Luke Skywalker got. So I would probably live the life of Luke Skywalker. That seems pretty sweet. All right. The last question we're going to take from the 24-hour marathon. I hope you guys don't mind that I pause to take a drink of my tea. It's helping me out a lot here. The last question that we're taking from the 24-hour marathon comes to us from... Oh, I got to close this down. My phone is ringing. Comes to us from Philip Garnecki. And Philip Garnecki writes, "Hi, Sons of AMC, longtime viewer. First comment." Well, thanks for writing in. I recently watched movie 43, which is... Wow. I recently watched movie 43, which I recall John actually walked out of. I did. It was like only the fourth movie in my life that I walked out on. Anyway, it certainly is a very bad movie. My question is, how did the people who made this mess get such a stellar cast to participate? All of these actors were popular, well-known actors, including A-listers like Hugh Jackman and Kate Winslet. Should have known better. I doubt the film had the budget to write them huge paychecks. There must be an inside story here. What happened? Well, there's a couple things to keep in mind here. I'm just going to open up IMDb here and pull up some details here. But there's a couple things to keep in mind. The first thing to keep in mind is something that I say all the time, which is, remember, every director, every actor, every producer, when they set out to make a film, they believe their film has the chance to be a really good movie, and they believe it has the potential to be really good. Then the actors who get on board are pitched by the directors and the agents, whatever, and they got to believe it sounds really good. I mean, everybody wants to make a good movie. And if a movie looks just horrible, then they won't move forward with it. So everybody thought the movie might be good, and that's why they got involved. But the other thing is, the more stars that got involved, it became more attractive for other stars to get on board and get involved. So once, like, let's say I, John Campea, am, for whatever reason, let's say I'm a famous actor, okay? Very hard to believe, but stretch your imagination a little bit. So let's say they come to me with the idea of doing this movie. I'm like, okay. And I say, okay, I'll think about it. And Peter Farrelly, I mean, one of the Farrelly brothers is one of the main directors of the film. So, I mean, of course, that's interesting. But then they come to me and say, hey, by the way, we've got Halle Berry on board too. Then I go, oh, well, now it's a little bit more interesting to get involved. By the way, now we got Hugh Jackman. Really? Now it's even more interesting. We've got Liev Schreiber. Really? Okay. Now I'm getting it. Jason Sudeikis just came on board. You got all these guys on board, and now as more and more names start to get added, if I'm like, let's say, I don't know, I'm Chris Pratt, okay, who's going to be in Guardians of the Galaxy, and Chris Pratt is in movie 43. And let's say I'm Chris Pratt, and I'm on the fence about being in it, but then the producers come back to me and say, by the way, we just signed Hugh Jackman, Halle Berry, and Jason Sudeikis. They're also going to be in it. Well, now it looks even more appealing to me. And I go, okay, I'm on board. And now that I'm on board, now the movie looks even more appealing to the next star they're trying to get into it. So it's almost like this wild domino effect that starts to happen with the actors. I know when I was making my movie, I had a couple of actresses that I was trying to get into it. And when I was able to tell some people, hey, I got this actress and this actress, and made the other actor that I was talking to go, yeah, okay, I'll be in it. So that kind of happens too. So I think it's a mixture of they thought it was going to be good. You had guys like the Farrelly brothers involved, James Gunn, Brett Ratner directed segments, Elizabeth Banks directed a segment. And then they started to accumulate this cast, which made the movie look even more and more appealing. And ultimately, I think you put all those things together, and it was a recipe for one of the worst films ever made. But if you're going to ask me, how did it happen? How did these people all get involved? I think it was a big mixture of all those things. All right, guys. That's it for the... oops, I'm dropping my halls all over the place. That's the end of the 24-hour marathon questions that we're taking today. Now, for the rest of the show, I'm just going to take the questions that you guys who are watching live are sending in. Now, once again, please use the chat board today just for chatting amongst yourselves. If you have a question you want me to address, because it's just me by myself, it's easier for me to handle it if you email me the question right now to amcmovietalk@gmail.com, because it's going to be a lot easier for me to manage the questions. And the questions are pouring in. And by the way, guys, don't write 3 paragraphs. Please keep it short as you can. Guy Chapelas is writing in, who's in the chat board. I was wondering what your thoughts let me try that again. I was wondering what your thoughts are on whether or not we'll see Cyclops, Jean Grey, Nightcrawler, and other key X-Men characters back on the big screen anytime soon. Would it be possible to reboot the X-Men film series by starting over with the first class characters? Something like James McAvoy as Professor X, starting up the X-Men, or is he too young? Anywho, thanks and keep up the great work. Well, Guy, is it possible? Yeah, I mean, I've always said, I believe we are going to see Jean Grey again. I believe we're going to see Cyclops again. Regarding Nightcrawler, really strange situation with Nightcrawler, man. I mean, Nightcrawler's in X-Men 2, which I think is in the top 3 of the greatest comic book films ever made, is X-Men 2. And Nightcrawler is one of the best things about that movie. I mean, I remember the first time we got to see that opening sequence in X-Men 2 with Nightcrawler assaulting the White House. That was awesome. Especially at the time. It was awesome, that sequence of Nightcrawler, because not just the power, the teleportation power looked cool, but the way Bryan Singer and his team orchestrated the combat of how Nightcrawler used his teleportation power in fighting all these Secret Service guys and assault the White House. Incredible. The way that looked. It was just amazing. And he was a really cool character. And actually, when you look into the history of Nightcrawler, he's a really neat character. I mean, very, very cool. And they touch on, he has, for instance, he has the only comic book character I really know of in movies that they've ever used in a movie that had really deep religious beliefs. And, his physical form is interesting. The way he tattooed himself, his background, his powers, how he used them, his ethics. Oh, Nightcrawler was damn cool. But for whatever reason, Alan Cumming. For whatever reason, I don't think Alan Cumming and Bryan Singer got along. That's just me speculating, but they just never went back to use him. And it was so silly because he worked great in X-Men 2. He lives at the end of X-Men 2. He's standing with the rest of the X-Men in that final scene in the president's in the Oval Office as they're talking to the president, and they say, "We'll be watching." Professor X says, "We'll be watching." And Nightcrawler is one of the guys standing there like this. It seemed like they set him up to be a part of the team. And then X-Men 3 comes in, poof, he's just gone. He's just not there. And in the interviews I've read with Alan Cumming, I've only read speculation. The actual stuff I've ever heard of, like from Alan Cumming or from Bryan Singer, is that, yeah, Alan won't be joining us. And Alan just saying, yeah, I'm not a part of anything with X-Men moving forward. So I don't know what went down, but clearly something went down because the character worked in the movie. They set him up by the end of the movie to make it look like he's going to be a continuing part of the team. Then all of a sudden, Nightcrawler's gone. No idea. So if that being the case, I don't think we're ever going to see Nightcrawler again. And it doesn't look like X-Men is looking to reboot anytime soon. With them going from X-Men Days of Future Past now into X-Men Apocalypse, it looks like they're going to figure out a way to continue on the story with probably a mixture of the classic characters from the first 3 X-Men films and the X-Men First Class cast. I think they're going to figure out a way to keep that going, but it's going to be their own continuity, and because of that, I don't think we're going to see Alan coming back as Nightcrawler again. All right, let me pick out another question here. And they are flying in. Okay. Don Anderson II, I'm sorry, writes in, "Hey guys, you are literally the best damn movie related news show on the internet." Yes, we are. Love you all. Now, I was talking to some friends yesterday and we were discussing Looper. I know no one went to see it, but I'm one of the people who saw it in theaters. And so I was wondering, I know that Joseph Gordon-Levitt, killed himself. You know what? This is a spoiler, but this Looper is a movie that's been in theaters for a long time. It's been out on home video for a long time. If you haven't seen it by now, then it's your bad. So I am going to read this spoiler from the movie. So if you haven't heard it, put your computer on mute for a bit. But I think at this point, Looper is an old enough movie now that it is fair game for us to discuss. So warning, there's a spoiler coming in the question. I know that Joe, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, killed himself to save Sid and his mom. But after that, where do you go regarding a sequel? Personally, I think it's fine where it ended, but maybe it could have a spin-off where it shows Sid's story. What do you think of that idea? Do you think a sequel could work, or maybe a spinoff? Thanks, guys. I look forward to meeting all of you one day. Thanks a lot for the question, Don. I always thought when I saw Looper for the first time, my assumption was they would probably make another one showing how that kid becomes the monster that they were all afraid of in the future. That was kind of my assumption, and I thought that might be pretty good. And I have a feeling if more people went to go see Looper, and I'll bring up the box office numbers right now. Hold on a second. Okay. And I think if more people went to go see Looper, I have a feeling that's probably what would have happened. Now, domestically, Looper only made about $66 million. Altogether worldwide, it made $176 million, which compared to its budget, which was around 30 to 35, I think, plus 20 million marketing, it was profitable. It made money. But I think they were hoping to see like the movie in the $300 million range worldwide, as opposed to 176. I thought Looper was fantastic. I ate that movie up. It had a couple of things I might have fixed or done differently, I should say. But overall, fantastic movie. Rian Johnson did a great job with it. Bruce Willis was great in it. Joseph Gordon-Levitt was great in it. I think the performances across the board were really solid. Really nice mythology they set up. Really nice storytelling. It was a great sci-fi movie. And I don't know why more people didn't go see it. I'm telling you, when I first saw the trailers and everything, dudes, I thought this movie is going to be a mega hit. Not just big, mega hit. It's fantastic. So, but do I think we're going to see a sequel? No, I don't think they're going to do one. If they were going to do one, I do think they follow the story of the kid at that point. But anyway, let's stop it from there and move on to the next question. And our next question today comes from, let's see, Jeremy Brubacher. And Jeremy Brubacher is writing in. He goes, it has been about 11 years since Jurassic Park 3, and Jurassic Park 4 was confirmed. Obviously, that has been on and off for about 11 years. Now that they have the fourth Jurassic Park film, known as Jurassic World, is well on its way. People have not seen another Jurassic Park for 11 years and have wanted to. And everything going for it with who they have... Man, your sentence structure is a little odd here. And everything going for it with who they have working on it and who is in it. Do you think that it could be the number on the movie in 2015? We have seen lots of superhero movies recently, but not a Jurassic Park movie. I doubt it will be the number one, but does it really have to have potential, or does it have the potential to be number one? I think basically the question is, can Jurassic Park World or Jurassic World be like a number one film at the box office? I don't think so. Just because the competition stacked up against it is just far too stiff. But can it be successful? Yeah. Jurassic World, aka Jurassic Park 4. Speaking of Chris Pratt is also starring in that. Dude, the last 12 months have been the year of Chris Pratt. I mean, his show is probably my favorite comedy on TV right now, Parks and Recreation. His character on that's amazing. He lands Guardians of the Galaxy. He's the lead voice in the upcoming Lego movie, which looks amazing. And now he's leading Jurassic World. This is like the Chris Pratt year. Anyway, I think it's going to be a hit regardless. I think this movie could be bad and it's going to be a hit. But if it's good, it'll be a bigger hit. When you get repeated viewings and word of mouth going around. But honestly, I think Jurassic World could be a bag of crap, and it would still make probably 400 million worldwide. Easy. If the movie's really great, it'll probably make 800 million worldwide, maybe more. But number one at the box office, I don't think so. Now, if Jurassic World is awesome, and then they make Jurassic Park 5 or a Jurassic World sequel, then that movie would have the potential to be a number one movie of the year. But I think right now it's going to be a hit no matter what, but I also don't think it has a prayer of being the number one movie of the year. All right, let's get on with more questions here. The next question comes in from Matthew B. And Matthew B writes, Hey AMC, love the show. Thank you so much, Matthew. So you guys have always addressed in the past that we will never see a Civil War movie because of the different studios. But what if in the near future, when Marvel has all of their Phase 3 and Phase 4 movies made, could we see a Civil War movie? They will probably have enough characters to do it. What do you guys think? Well, okay, so for those of you who don't know what we're talking about here, this has come up several times, but this is an interesting question. There's a comic book storyline called Civil War, in which basically, and it's a great storyline, in which basically a law is passed saying that all superheroes have to actually reveal their identities or register themselves. And the superheroes are split over this. There's a faction of the superheroes led by Captain America that do not believe superheroes should have to reveal their true identities. And then you have another faction of the superheroes led by Iron Man who believes superheroes must reveal their secret identities. And they come into conflict with each other, and it is, as the title suggests, a civil war that breaks out between the superheroes. Now, the reason I've said we're not going to see a proper Civil War movie is because you have X-Men characters in it. The Fantastic Four, especially Reed Richards, is a key player in the Civil War stuff. Spider-Man is a key player. Like it was a big deal in the comic book world when Spider-Man sided with Iron Man and had a press conference and took his mask off, and Peter Parker revealed himself to the world. That was a big deal in the comics. But Spider-Man can't be in it because Spider-Man belongs to Sony. Fantastic Four belongs to Fox. All the X-Men characters belong to Fox. So you'd essentially be trying to make a Civil War movie without any of the X-Men. That includes Wolverine, Beast, all the rest of them. Without Spider-Man. Without the Fantastic Four. Now, but the question that you're raising, Matthew, is, okay, that's fine. Can't use those characters. But maybe after Phase 3 and Phase 4, Marvel now has so many superhero characters. Could they do a Civil War movie on their own without having to use characters from X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Spider-Man? The answer is yes. I mean, it would be a departure from the comic book, and that's fine. I'm always cool with departures from the comic book if it makes the movie better. So the answer is yes, you could. I don't think they will. I don't think they'll try to do a Civil War movie without all those key characters, but after, say, Phase 4, and now you've got 20 or 30 meta-human characters, and you create like two sides, like 10 characters each, led by Captain America and led by Iron Man, that's something you could do. And in that scenario, you could see a Civil War movie. I just doubt Marvel will actually go in that direction. All right. Next question. That one was from Matthew B. The next one we have here, let's see, Nikki Thompson. And Nikki Thompson asks, hi, John. You once said that when a film fails on an artistic level, the fault is first and foremost with the director and then the writer. Surely if a film is bad, the writer is the most responsible, as the director can only work with what he has. For instance, two of my biggest problems with Man of Steel, and this is just my opinion, is that A, it didn't spend enough time in the flashbacks, and B, the intervals between each flashback was so short, it made the pacing of the entire first half seem rushed. So, is it Zack Snyder's fault if David Goyer simply doesn't write a scene that's long enough? This debate about who's most responsible if a movie's bad or great, does it most fall on the director? Does it most fall on the writer? Look, every film is unique. And every relationship between every director and the respective studio, and between the writer and the studio, and between the writer and the director is unique. So I'm going to talk in generalities here, okay? There are exceptions to this. So what I'm going to say, there are exceptions to it, all right? But this is what I have to say about it. You ever watch the Food Network? I know this sounds way out there in left field. You ever watch the Food Network? The Food Network has this show called Chopped. All right. And Chopped is this show where three chefs are given a mystery basket, and there's a bunch of random weird ingredients in it. And then they have like 30 minutes to make a meal, a good tasting, good looking meal out of whatever ingredients are in that bag. And sometimes, there's like rack of lamb in it, but sometimes it's like a jar of jubes with a buckwheat pasta shells and, poison strawberries from Iceland, weird, wacky stuff. In my scenario in my head, the way I see it is this. The writer, in essence, is the person who puts ingredients in the basket. The director is the chef who now has to take what's given to him and make something good out of it, at least as good as you can. So there can be a great basket filled with wonderful ingredients. The chef has to take that and make a good meal out of it. Or maybe the chef is handed a basket with terrible ingredients. It's still the chef's responsibility to take what's given to him and make the best meal possible. I believe the same thing about movies. That the director is the one in the chair, making the shots, making the decisions, and trying to sculpt that movie and pace it in such a way that it works. Sometimes they're handed an amazing script. Sometimes they're handed a piece of crap script. It is still the director's responsibility to take what he's given and make the best film he can out of it. Make the best film he can out of it. If you want to talk about, here's a Spider-Man 3 and Avengers illustration, okay? In both cases, Spider-Man 3 and Avengers, both directors, in this case Sam Raimi and Joss Whedon, were forced to use a character in their movie that they didn't want to at first. So Joss Whedon had no desire to put Black Widow in his movie. He wanted to use Wasp. But the studio said, nope, you're putting Black Widow in this movie. Sam Raimi didn't originally want to have Venom in his film. He wanted to have, I think, Vulture. I think Vulture was the one he was going to have in there instead. But the studio said, nope, you're going to use Venom. In both cases, the director was given something that they didn't want, but it is still their responsibility to, all right, I've been told I got to put Black Widow in this movie. So it is my responsibility as the director to make the best movie I can using the Black Widow character and make it work. Or on Sam Raimi saying, I didn't want to use Venom, but Sony wants Venom. So they're pushing that on me. All right. Now it is my responsibility to make the best movie possible with the Venom character and do what I need to do to make it work as good as possible. In the case of Sam Raimi with Spider-Man 3, and Sam Raimi is a hero of mine. He's awesome, like beyond awesome. He's great. But Spider-Man 3 sucked. Everybody has a bad day at the office. I do sucky AMC Movie Talk episodes. Steven Spielberg has made a couple of bad movies, and I think he's the greatest director of all time. Everybody has a bad day at the office. And Sam Raimi, Spider-Man 3 was his. It is still, and everybody wants to jump to Sam Raimi's defense saying, no, it's Sony's fault because Sony made him put Venom in there. So what? Joss Whedon had to use a character he didn't want to. Peter Jackson had to drop characters that he wanted to use in the original Lord of the Films trilogy, but the studio said, no, you got to drop them. That's life. That happens. That happens. It is still the director's responsibility to take that and make the best possible film he can out of it. I still stand by the idea that if a movie is terrible, sure, the director made mistakes. Sure, there's big problems with the script. Sure, maybe the studio had some responsibility. Sure, maybe the actors didn't give a good performance. But the first place you look, when you're giving blame, but also I believe when you're giving praise to a great film, I believe the first place you have to look is the director's chair. Because that's the guy who makes it happen. That's the woman who is responsible for taking everything and making it work the best they can to pace it and all that kind of crap. So, there you go. Let's see. Next question. Great question, by the way. I believe it was Nikki who asked that question. Next question. Where are we at right now, by the way? We're at... we're getting close to an hour already. Okay. So many questions are flooding in that I'm losing my place. Civil War was already asked. All right. Scott Ellis is asking, with the success of The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit franchise, it seems hard to imagine that we will never return to Middle-earth again. Do you think a Bareen and Luthian / Turin Tumbar film is possible? What about Gimli Legolas film? Thanks. Talking about making spin-off movies with existing characters. In most movie universes, I'd say that's a possibility. But honestly, I think when the Hobbit series is done, I think Middle-earth is done. I don't... A lot of people want to mention the Silmarillion, and that would be a very, very difficult book to try to translate into a film. I've always said that. Plus, it's not nearly as popular as The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, so you have that working against it as well. But the way that book is written makes it jumps around a lot. It covers a lot of time. I think it becomes a very challenging film to make, and I'm not sure it has the commercial success potential that, say, The Hobbit had and Lord of the Rings. So my guess is going to be no. I don't think we're going to see any more film. I think the next time we go back to Middle-earth after The Hobbit is done is when they reboot Lord of the Rings, and that's probably at least 10, 15, 20 years away. So so that's the way I kind of see that. Okay, next one. Okay, so this one comes from Stephen Tange, who writes, "Hey John, love the show and I never miss it. Thanks a lot, Stephen. Have you heard that Spielberg has tapped Neil Blomkamp to direct the pilot for the Halo television series? Knowing that Blomkamp was originally slated to direct the film version as well, do you think this brings us any closer to Halo on the big screen, or do you think it will remain a property for the small screen only?" Yeah, I mean, for those of you who might remember, a long time ago, years and years and years and years and years ago, Peter Jackson was producing a Halo movie, and he picked this director that no one had never directed before. He picked a director who had never actually directed a film, like a full-length feature film, to direct Halo. That made all the studios who were financing the film very nervous, and basically the whole thing fell apart. And Neil Blomkamp then went on to make District 9, which was great. But it should be noted, District 9 was his own short film that he had already done. And so it was working within a world that he created himself, that had no pre-existing expectations. And it was the perfect place for Neil Blomkamp, the perfect type of film, a small budget. And people forget that I think District 9 cost under $30 million to make. A small budget film working in a world that he was already very comfortable with because he had been living in this District 9 world for like 10 years, I think, to cut his teeth as a first-time director. And it worked out great. Now, the last movie Blomkamp did with Matt Damon, damn it, guys, Chapboard, what's the name of the movie he just did with Matt Damon? Hold on a second, let me pull it up here. Matt Damon, it's the name of the space station, I think, is the name of the movie. And Matt Damon, marionette's moving really slow. Elysium. Okay. Elysium, directed by Neil Blomkamp, I think was a bad film. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I thought that movie was just bad. It was basically a complete carbon copy, not just the look of it, but if you actually analyze the plot point by plot point by plot point by plot point progression of the film, it was a complete copy of District 9. He just copied his own work. But only this time it didn't work. And I thought it was a bad film. Could Spielberg, who is producing a Halo, I don't even know that's a television series. I think it's just a series that's going to be like broadcast on Xbox Live. Getting Blomkamp to direct like the first episode, I don't think it means anything, to be honest. And I said this before about 6 months ago when the news first came out that Spielberg was going to work as a producer. And remember, Spielberg, greatest director of all time, but that dude will attach his name as a producer to anything. I think there are movies he's headlined as the produced by Steven Spielberg where he doesn't do a single thing. But he just collects a real nice paycheck because he agreed to put his name on it as a producer. I honestly have no idea how much work Steven Spielberg's actually going to be putting into Halo. My suspicion is very, very little. But I said 6 months ago that when they said they were going to do this streaming series, TV series, whatever you want to call it, I actually believe it hurts the chances of a Halo film. And a lot of people want to point me to Halo Unto Dawn, Forward Unto Dawn, it was called, I believe. So I watched it. My brother-in-law showed it to me. And I sat down and I watched it. It's awful. That Halo Forward and the Dawn thing, that was terrible. Honestly, it's one of those things where it's like, and I mean no offense to those of you who watched it and liked it. All this stuff is subjective, and if you loved it, awesome. Just because I didn't like it doesn't mean you shouldn't like it. But I'm just saying, I heard some good things about it, and I sat down and watched it, and I thought, this is pathetic. I really thought it was quite poor, quite bad. By real movie standards, that was awful. But that's just my opinion. And I know some people who loved it, and nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that's my opinion on it. But I've always believed that if you make a TV series out of something, it does hurt the chances of a real feature-length film version of that property. So I kind of believe that's the situation that we're in right now with that. All right. The next question comes to us from Lewis Norton, who writes, question, which movie do you think is going to do better, Avengers 2 or X-Men Days of Future Past? Oh, that's not even close. Avengers 2 is going to blow Days of Future Past out of the water. Now, notice the question is not which movie will be better. You're asking which movie will do better, in which case we're probably talking about the box office here. And as far as the question is which film is going to perform better at the box office, Avengers 2 or X-Men Days of Future Past, no question. Avengers 2, I mean, it could double what X-Men Days of Future Past does at the box office. X-Men Days of Future Past is going to be a hit, and it's going to make a lot of money. But Avengers 2, coming off that first Avengers movie, it's going to blow it out of the water. The big question, the real question we need to be asking is which film is going to be better? And I don't know yet. If you would have asked me that 6 months ago, I would have guessed just Avengers 2 would be better. But I'm telling you, I've loved everything I've seen from X-Men Days of Future Past. I don't like the design of Toad. That looks stupid. I don't like the costume and the look of some of the characters. But ultimately, that really doesn't matter. Everything I've seen and the way I've heard and I've read about how the story progresses, I've heard nothing but great things. I think X-Men Days of Future Past has a legitimate shot at being the better movie out of X-Men Days of Future Past and Avengers 2. But I mean, obviously, that's something that we can't say for sure until we actually see the movies. But easily, Avengers 2 will outperform at the box office X-Men Days of Future Past. But I think as far as which film will be better, that's a much more interesting question. I think it's going to be really close. I really do. I think they're both going to be awesome, but I think it's going to be really close. Okay, we're almost at an hour here. I'm going to take just a couple more questions. Okay, so David Hammer writes, hi AMC, I watch your show all the time. It's great. Thank you so much. I have a fun little question. Could you see a Flash Gordon reboot in the near future? And if so, who would you cast as Flash and Meng the Merciless? Yeah, I could see them doing a Flash Gordon at some point. It's a recognizable property. It's a sci-fi property. So it's a possibility. But there's a difference, I think, between possibility and probability. Well, I believe a legitimate possibility exists. I don't think it's a probability. Now, as far as who I could see playing Flash and Meng, I don't know. I can't think of that off the top of my head. That's something I would probably have to sit down and give some thought to. All right, take a couple of more here. Honestly, I can't believe there's 1,000 people watching this Saturday morning. Thanks for joining us, guys. Let's see here. Justin Hayes writes, hey AMC, your shows are the best on the web. Thanks so much, Justin. My question, you said before that remakes/reboots are fine to make because if it's any good, if it isn't any good, you still got the originals. You've also said, most of the time, that you're not a fan of prequels. My question is, why does the same rule not apply to both? You don't have to watch the Star Wars prequels. You can and should start with episode 4. That's the original Star Wars, by the way. Why is it that you don't want studios to make prequels? As a side note, do you think they will ever remake the Star Wars prequels? Thanks for asking and keep up the great show. It's a great question, Justin. I've always said, look, I don't mind reboots. I know a lot of people like to complain about reboots, but some of the best films ever made have been reboots. And I thank God that we have them. But I've also said I'm not a fan of prequels. I would much rather, studios not make prequels. Generally speaking, there are exceptions, but generally speaking, I don't like prequels. So let's look at Star Wars for a second as an example. All right, I'm not going to take another opportunity to bag on the Star Wars prequels. You all know what I feel about them, but it's a very different question to say, hey, let's reboot Star Wars, or let's make another Star Wars. If you're going to make another Star Wars, that is awesome. But I want you, if you're going to make another Star Wars, continue the story. What happens next? Let's move forward. Let's not keep going backwards. Let's not keep going into the past. Let's move forward. Let's progress this story. Let's push the narrative. We don't need to go backwards. Just don't need to. So there's a fundamental difference between let's reboot the franchise, because you're just taking a property that's now dead. So for instance, let's say Carrie, okay? They're not making a Carrie sequel. So somebody 20 years later says, let's reboot Carrie. Okay, great. Let's reboot Carrie. And if the movie's good, fantastic. We got another good movie. If it's bad, no problem. We've got the original Carrie that we can watch instead. But in saying, let's make another film, not reboot, but let's make another film based around whatever this franchise we're talking about at the time is, then I want you to move forward with the story. I want to see what happens next. Not what happened when our hero was 12 years old. I'm just far less interested in that. I want the story to move forward. So that's why, to me, that's the significant difference between announcing you're doing a reboot and announcing you're making another film in this franchise. And you're right. I mean, I don't have to watch a prequel, but damn it, it's going to bug me a lot if I know you're making another Hulk movie. Then I want to see a new Hulk movie, not Dr. Banner when he was 14 years old and struggling with not being popular at high school. You know, that's just the thing. That's just me. Once again, it's all subjective. If you think differently, that's totally cool. Your opinion is no more and no less valid than mine, but that's my opinion. All right. I'm starting to cough a bit here, so I'm going to take one more question. And this question comes to us from Josh Hall. Remember, guys, I'm not pre-reading these questions. I'm just pulling them up and reading them. Okay. And Josh Hall writes, hey, John, I was wondering if you think Dane DeHaan will be playing Hobgoblin and not Green Goblin in Spider-Man 2. Thanks. I'm honestly not even sure they're going to make a distinction in this movie. I don't know if in this new Spider-Man movie, and in a bigger picture, in this new Spider-Man universe, I'm not even sure they're going to make a distinction. I don't know that they're going to have Goblin, Hobgoblin, Green Goblin. I don't know that they're going to make that distinction. I think they're going to make their character. I have a feeling, I could be totally wrong about this. This is just me speculating, okay? Just speculating. I have a feeling they're just going to call it Goblin. And that's it. And I think we're going to have a Goblin. And maybe somebody else besides Dane DeHaan will be Goblin at some point, but I believe they're just going to call it Goblin. I don't think we're going to call it Hobgoblin. I don't think they're going to call it Green Goblin. I think you're just going to have one guy and they're just going to call it Goblin. And outside of that, they're not going to make a distinction. But once again, it's just it's just my theory. I really don't know. So anyway, I am getting one more question here, and I should address this question because a couple of people, I'm noticing in the chat board, some people put this in the subject line, so I should address this. Obviously, the other day, a big piece of news dropped yesterday. It felt kind of like DC was trying to hide the news by releasing it on a Friday because it's not a big news cycle on Friday, Saturday. But anyway, that they have cast, I'm going to pop another lozenge, guys. They've cast Lex Luthor and they've cast Alfred. And now that I've had... Joey421 is asking, now that you've had about 24 hours to think about it, now how do you feel about the casting of Jesse Eisenberg and Jeremy Irons as Lex Luthor / Alfred? I still feel the same way about Jeremy Irons as Alfred. Jeremy Irons is not a name I would have thought of. I was wanting a Timothy Dalton type, but really Jeremy Irons is kind of a Timothy Dalton type. And look, Jeremy Irons is a world-class actor. World-class. If there was an acting hall of fame, and I believe there should be. I believe there should be a movie hall of fame. You know how the NFL, NHL, all the sports leagues, they have a hall of fame. I think if there was a hall of fame for Hollywood, then Jeremy Irons at some point would probably be inducted. I think he's that good of an actor. That being said, it's never a mistake to recruit that level of talent, and he is an incredible talent. I believe he fits the role. I never would have thought of it, but once they said it, I went, damn, yeah, that's a good pick. I would have preferred Timothy Dalton. I might have preferred this or that or the other thing, but who cares? Jeremy Irons is a great actor, great pick to play Alfred. That's how I still feel today. Actually, I'm probably more enthusiastic about that today than I was even yesterday. As far as the Jesse Eisenberg thing, let me pull up a picture here if I can get my hands on it. Here's the picture. Hold on a second. Okay, here's this picture I put up on my Facebook page yesterday that got sent to me. Here it is. I know lots of guys are saying Heisenberg, not Eisenberg, but I love this graphic. Jesse Eisenberg. Oh, they were thinking Jesse and Heisenberg. People wanted Bryan Cranston. And once again, folks, this is why I don't try to break scoops. Remember a couple weeks ago, for those of you who follow me on Twitter, and you follow me on Twitter, just at John Campia, I mentioned like about a month ago that I had two people tell me that Bryan Cranston was signed as Lex Luthor. But I was not going to run with that as a story on AMC or in anything because I didn't even buy it. Because I said, I don't even know that I buy this. I don't know these sources. I don't know if I trust them. And believe me, I think if a lot of different websites had gotten the contact that I got saying that Bryan Cranston was going to be Lex Luthor, they would have run it as headlines. Bryan Cranston is going to be Lex Luthor, they would have run with. And to me, it was like, I put on my Twitter, I said, look, just so you know, I got told this, but I don't know that I even buy it. And I don't know if I trust the people who told me that this is the case. I think it's suspicious, but just so you know, this is what I was told. But we never talked about it on AMC. We never ran with it as a story on our blog or on our show, ever. And it's a good thing I didn't, because it turned out to be totally bull. Bryan Cranston is not Lex Luthor. Jesse Eisenberg is our Lex Luthor. So my feeling about Jesse Eisenberg playing Lex Luthor is still kind of the same that it was yesterday, but let me elaborate on a little bit more. I don't believe Jesse Eisenberg. And remember, the word overrated, a lot of people hear the word overrated and they think that means that you think something is bad. Not the case. I think American Hustle is an overrated movie. I think it gets more praise than it deserves. I don't think it's nearly as good as a lot of other people seem to think it is. But that does not mean I think it is a bad film. I think it is quite a good film, as a matter of fact. I think it's a very good film. And I liked it very much. But I wouldn't nominate it for Best Picture. I don't think it's that good. But I think it's still very good. Even though I don't think it's one of the best of the year. And I said on the show, I think Jesse Eisenberg at this point is an overrated actor. I think he's given more credit than he's due as an actor. I think so far I've seen very little range from him as an actor. To me, every character he plays in every single movie kind of looks the same. They sound the same. They act the same in many ways. I don't think he deserved a nomination for The Social Network. And that's because the character, and this isn't his fault, the character was a one-note character. It was just basically a guy talking like this. And sometimes make his face look a little mad. I don't think anybody in this room has the intellectual capacity to do what we, my associates, did. But that's the way he talks. That's the way he sounds. That's the way it is in every single movie. But that being said, me saying that I believe Jesse Eisenberg is an overrated actor, that does not mean I believe he is a bad actor. Quite frankly, I think he is a good actor. And I think when he gets thrown into some movies, and I know my friend Frosty, Steve Weintraub from Collider.com, he was on AMC Movie Talk with us yesterday. He just saw a movie with Jesse Eisenberg where he basically plays two different characters, and he said it was really good in it. And that's the type of movie I'm dying to see Jesse Eisenberg do. See him do a movie that offers him or that forces him to have more of a range and see what he as an actor can do with that kind of a range. Because frankly, so far, we haven't seen him do it. So what I said was, would I have picked Jesse Eisenberg? No. Am I happy with the choice of Jesse Eisenberg? I'd say no, I'm not happy with it. But does the choice of Jesse Eisenberg to play Lex Luthor piss me off? Does it turn me off as a fan? Honestly, no. I mean, a lot of people saying, he's way too young, he's like a kid. Jesse Eisenberg is 30 years old. Now, granted, he looks and sounds a lot younger, but he's 30. It's not like he's 15 or 21. He's also a real, legitimate actor, unlike some people DC have cast in their movies so far. And I'm not going to bring up the whole thing again. But he is a real, legitimate actor who has shown upside. So, am I happy with the Jesse Eisenberg selection as Lex Luthor? No, to be honest, I'm not happy with it. But I can live with it because he's shown he can be good. I think he is good. He is a legitimate actor. He's been acting a long time. A lot of people have some great respect for him as an actor. So while I don't like it and I'm not happy with it, I can live with it. And I can live with it enough that I can just say, okay, Jesse Eisenberg, not what I would have done. I don't think it was a particularly good one. I'm not happy with it, but I can live with it. Especially at least until we can see some trailers and whatnot, and see once we get a better idea about what kind of Lex Luthor Warner Brothers have in mind. Once we get an idea for what kind of Lex Luthor they want, then we can see if Jesse Eisenberg is a good fit for it. Because until we know what kind of Lex Luthor that they want, we can't really tell. So, am I happy with it? No. But can I live with it? I think there's enough upside there that I can live with it. But like many of you guys, I would have much rather seen a John Hamm. I much rather would have seen a Joaquin Phoenix. I much rather would have seen a Bryan Cranston. I much rather would have seen Michael C. Hall. I much rather would have seen... I mean, I got a laundry list of 20 guys I could give you that I would have rather seen as Lex Luthor. But is Jesse a horrible choice? I got to disagree with anybody who says he's a horrible choice. I'll agree with you that I'm not happy with it and I would have picked somebody else, and I don't think it's necessarily a really good choice, but I can live with it. And I think that's the feeling I'm getting from most people too, is that everybody's like, Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor? Yeah, like with Ben Affleck, when a lot of people heard Ben Affleck, they're going to destroy the world, this is awful. With Jesse Eisenberg, I'm getting a lot of sense of, what? Jesse Eisenberg? But not a lot of outrage over it, you know? And that's how I feel. I'm not really big on it, but I'm not outraged by it. So let's see how it goes. All right, guys. We've gone over an hour. Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate you guys taking some time out of your Saturday to spend with us online and talk movie. I see the chat board's been really active. You guys talking amongst yourselves. Thanks for sending in all the questions. You guys are awesome. And again, thank you to all of those of you who donated money during the 24-hour marathon that we did. You literally, I sound like Chris Traeger on Parks and Rec. You literally saved people's lives. Wrap your head around that for a second. You literally saved people's lives when we did that 24-hour marathon. That's what you guys did. So thank you so much for that. And I'm sorry that so many of the questions that you guys sent in aren't going to be able to get answered, because honestly, far more of you donated than we ever expected you would. And that's a good problem for us to have. Again, don't forget to check out AMC Versus on Tuesday. And tomorrow's a Super Bowl. LOB, baby, Legion of Boom. I am still going to do a show tomorrow in the morning. Probably around 10:30, 11. Follow me on my Twitter at John Campia, because I'll tweet out a link and I'll tweet out what time I'm going to start doing the live show. So I'm going to do the live show tomorrow, probably keep it to about half hour, and then I'm going to take off to go to my buddies and watch the Super Bowl tomorrow. But again, guys, thank you. You guys are the best audience in the whole wide internet. Thank you so much for everything you guys do. So AMC Movie Talk on Monday, tomorrow another AMC Mailbag, and on Tuesday AMC Versus. Thanks again, guys. So until next time, my name is John Campia for AMC Movie News, and until then, bye-bye.